Hey, good evening, everyone. It is 5 o'clock, so we are about to get started, and I'd like to call the Concord Carlisle Regional School Committee to order.
I would like to call the Concord School Committee to order.
And we will roll call.
Percheck present.
Lynette, I think you're muted. No, you're really muted. I'm sorry, we can't hear you. Lynette Kelleher is present. Morano present.
Already present.
Rankin present.
Williams present.
And Mark, do you want to call the select board to order?
I do. I'm Mark Howell, Chair of the Concord Select Board, and I'll just do a quick roll call. Do we have Paul Baum?
Present.
Mary Hardman?
Present.
Wendy Ravelli?
Present.
And I don't see Cameron yet, but he says he's dialing in, so he'll join when he can.
Okay, and before we start, of course, I am not in my house right now, and I just got signed out of the document I was going to read from. All right, before we start the meeting, I want to just give a framework of how the meeting is going to proceed. We have about 111 people on our meeting right now with, I think, 16 or so panelists. Every school committee meeting is done in a webinar format for the safety and protection of the audience. We have been Zoom bombed, as has the town, so we've actually been in webinar format for over a year. We will have Mark Howell, Select Board Chair, Andrew Herchek, Concord Public Schools Chair, and myself chairing this meeting jointly. In addition to the school committee, Select Board, I know Carlisle Select Board and some members of the FinCom are also listening in. We have Dr. Hunter, Superintendent, Town Manager Kerry LaFleur, Representative Simon Cataldo, Glenn Kuchar, Executive Director of the MASC, and Attorney Paige Tobin. We also have Chief Mulcahy of the Concord Police Department and Middlesex District Attorney Marion Ryan, who will also participate in our meeting. We'll then be here to listen. The boards will have some discussion, then the select board will adjourn and the school committee will continue with our meeting. And with that said, I will turn it to Andrew Herchek.
Thanks, Tracy. I'm going to read a statement that Tracy and I prepared about a week and a half ago, just acknowledging that we haven't met as a committee yet, but we wanted to get our commitment out there as soon as possible. So I will read that and then just a few additional thoughts before I hand it over to Mark. So here's a statement. We have read the summary of the Office of Civil Rights complaint involving allegations of anti-Semitism in our schools and share in the deep sadness that so many members of the community are feeling for the Jewish students and families in our community. As the chairs of the Concord and the Concord Carlisle school committees, we want to affirm that no student or family in our community should ever feel unsafe, unheard, or unwelcome. It's the school committee's job to work with the administration and the community to help ensure an excellent academic experience for everyone. As a newly seated committee, we must take a clear-eyed look at our school's policies, our programming, and our training. We are committed to ensuring that the school committee and the administration work closely with members of the community in the coming school year to strengthen our efforts to make Concord Carlisle a place where every student feels safe, respected, and supported. The school district cannot do this alone. As echoed by many residents in attendance at the select board meeting last week, anti-Semitism and acts of hate also persist outside of our schools in our community, as well as other communities, both locally and nationally. To ensure meaningful change, we need collaboration from local stakeholders. We're looking to recommendations of the Massachusetts Special Commission on Combating Anti-Semitism and the assistance of other trusted partners in our community. Right now, many members of our community are organizing and preparing to present action steps to various leaders and groups in our town. We applaud these efforts, and the school committee will be engaged in taking action beginning tonight with our joint meeting with the select board. So that was our statement that we put out last week. I just wanted to share a couple of additional thoughts from me. I want to emphasize that looking to our committee, the school committee, we're a newly seated committee. I think nearly half of the committee are new around the table. And I think that's an opportunity to take a fresh perspective, looking at our responsibilities and including this urgent work on combating hate. And so I want to emphasize taking a clear-eyed and kind of forward-looking view, beginning tonight and ongoing in the fall. Another point I wanted to emphasize is combating acts of hate is definitely a community effort. Tracy and I and Michael too, we were at the select board meeting a week ago, and it was very informative. It was clear then, and I applaud Mark for his approach in that meeting, and just want to thank him and the select board for their commitment, mobilizing very quickly to have this joint meeting on very, very short notice. I want to thank other members of the community that are joining tonight. Representative Cataldo's here, and he's going to give us a little insight to the work he's doing on his special commission. We have a member of the MASC with us tonight. I believe the district attorney's joining, the select board, obviously, and then I'm sure many members of the community are here listening and giving their opinions as well. So very appreciative of everything coming together on very short notice for tonight. On behalf of the schools, children are only in our schools about 15% of the time. That means an additional 80%, they're not in our schools. They're playing sports, they're doing extracurriculars, they're on social media, they're around the community, they're outside of the community watching news. So again, a lot of emphasis on a community-wide effort here, and the work, in my mind, begins tonight. Wanted to comment quickly on transparency. I've been having a lot of conversations over the last week or two on this topic and other topics. And listen, I wish I could tell you everything. I really do. There's a lot going on behind the scenes. Only some of it's published. I wish I could, give every detail on all these events, but I think I just asked the community to recognize that our stakeholders, at least on the school committee, we are unique in that they are minors. And so we are bound by certain laws, privacy laws for minors. And I am very comfortable walking right up to the line and giving as much information as possible, but we have to be very careful in protecting the children in the community. And then lastly, just on communication, I realize not everyone gets their information from our school committee meetings. I've personally been on the committee for almost a year and a half, and any given meeting has maybe a dozen or 2 dozen people in attendance and double that online. So it's hard to get our message out in a public forum. And Tracy and I and Lori have been talking a lot about how we can change that. And so we will be exploring that in the fall. And I think if you do stay to the end of the meeting, we're going to hear a little bit about the story of the schools, which is a really good first step to some deeper communication from us on the school committee and from the administration. So with that, I will hand it over to Mark.
Thank you very much, Andrew. We're still working on getting Kim. He's connected, and we're trying to find his name in the attendees list, but I'll make my opening statement. Our role here tonight is to be attentive. We understand that our community has an issue, and our intention is to be attentive to those that have been affected by it, to be responsive to the needs of the community, and to be realistic that despite all efforts to date, we are here and the problem of anti-Semitic acts and hateful speech are present, and they're a growing concern. They're a community concern, and so our intention as the select board is to listen tonight, to provide some initial reaction as we join with the school committee in some early discussions, and then continue this discussion at our very next meeting, which will be next Monday night. I want to thank Town Manager Carrie LaFleur for being here, for the resources that she's providing. I want to thank Chief Mulcahy and particularly DA Ryan for joining us tonight. We'll be hearing from them after the other scheduled speakers, and they will begin to point us in the direction of what has been happening in our community so far, what the processes are, and what we can build on. So with that, we'll make a start, and it's only a start. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. And I just want to give you an update. We have 175 people attending online, and we have our 17 panelists. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Dr. Hunter. I know that She has sent a letter to the community. She's had a lot of meetings over these past couple of weeks. She's met with a lot of stakeholders, parents. I know she's met with 2 of our rabbis. So I think now is an opportunity to really hear from Dr. Hunter. Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. First, I'm really appreciative that there's an opportunity tonight to open the dialogue up. I think it's been a hard few weeks on many levels. The distance between all of us and the limited communication tools we've had, I think, have been a piece of what's added to that challenge. I'm really, opening with a heartfelt sorry for all the pain and hurt in the community over the last few weeks. Me and my team carry that very heavily and have frankly been somewhat overwhelmed by it, trying to find our way in the best possible response, given the way this played out. Our level of priority for safety and belonging in the schools is always, always the only mission we really have. Kids can't learn unless that's the case. And so we're incredibly committed to that work, have been and will be, and really want to start a dialogue today on what we're going to do next. I think, part of what's brought us here is we have had issues in the school, and I can't speak specifically to what's in the public right now. Ones that we took seriously at the time, ones that we addressed as best as we could within the parameters of privacy and discipline. And is there room to collectively figure out our strategies and expectations of each other? Of course there is, of course. And it seems really that's important work that needs to start to happen. We address every issue that's brought to us. We investigate, we communicate with parents as appropriate. We apply discipline and do our very best to make sure that those interventions are going to prevent recurring issues. That said, sometimes that isn't what happens, and that's where we try to come at it from many other angles as well. We've had strong partnerships for many, many years. We've had a long-standing partnership with the ADL in Boston. They've conducted a lot of trainings, both with students and staff over the years. We have a relationship with the Lapin Foundation. We've worked on educational levels to train teachers and ourselves, the JCRC of Greater Boston. And this year, earlier in the year, we really started to lean into our local leaders. Representative Cataldo and I have talked a number of times. We met with local rabbis, specifically Rabbi Darby first, and started to build a bridge there. We know we need to listen. We know we need to understand better and more. We know we need to strategize how to be effective in reaching kids and adults who are supporting those kids. Our curriculum covers genocide. That's the law now, is we must cover it very specifically. We cover the Holocaust in multiple directions, whether it's the social studies curriculum. We often have texts in the English curriculum that are set in the Holocaust. And we've even, the last couple of years, have some of the very few precious Holocaust survivors speak with our students at the middle school level. We know we can do more. We're here to start to talk on that. If there's a silver lining, it's the fact that this entire community is starting the conversation. We're a really big part of it. We own that, and we're going to want to be accountable for that. But we also want to partner with everyone that's available to us. For me, at the school level specifically, it feels really important that we open up the dialogue. I'll be looking for, this is hard tonight. We're definitely going to listen and listen and listen, but really dialogue and conversation is going to be difficult in this setting. Really opening up some focus groups and bringing the administrative team and leaders together as a starting point to start to really listen in a different way. I think if one thing really struck me over the last few weeks and all the layers and chapters that this has had, whether it be the media and the national press and some hate mail, and then working our way to tonight with some of the local leaders and some individuals I've been able to talk to. I don't know that our Jewish community has a presence in our schools. I don't see that. I was able to connect with a number of my colleagues locally in other districts, and there are Jewish student unions. There's just a different environment that we have not reached at this point. And I want to be sure, for us, especially, student voice is elevated in this. Our kids are amazing and thoughtful, and will very much want to be part of the solution. So I think those are my opening comments tonight. Really heard of the great partnerships that are present here in front of you, and look to really engage as many people as possible in what's next. Thank you.
Thanks, Lori. Lori, I believe that Cam is online. If you could promote him, he's the iPad.
Okay. Yes, I will do that.
And I'll let Andrew introduce our Representative Simon Cataldo.
Yes, I think most people know who Simon is. I just want to again thank him for coming tonight on relatively short notice, and just want to thank him personally. He's been a great sounding board for me this summer. I've learned a lot about the work that he's doing on a state commission, a commission that he's co-chairing. And I think he has some great things to say. So Simon, if you're there, thank you for being here.
I am here, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much to the Select Board, to the school committee for inviting me today. It's always good to be with you, although, of course, like you, I am deeply saddened that we're here for this reason. The purpose of my invitation here today was to share the work of the Massachusetts Special Commission on Combating Anti-Semitism, which I co-chair. Before launching into an explanation of that work, I do want to express the profound pride that I felt seeing Jewish and non-Jewish members of our Concord Carlisle community speaking publicly about these issues at the last select board hearing. Nothing that we mandate in government, that the special commission mandates or recommends, is a substitute for the moral courage of residents who stand up to combat any type of discrimination. So as a father of 4 children in the community, as a Concord Public School alum, as a congregant of our local synagogue, Kerem Shalom, and as I believe the first Jewish legislator to have been elected in Concord or Carlisle at the state or federal level, I want to thank all of you who have spoken up for your bravery. As mentioned, I was appointed by the Speaker of the House to co-chair what is the nation's first state commission on combating anti-Semitism. The Special Commission was created by the state legislature in August of 2024 in response to a stark rise in anti-Semitic incidents in Massachusetts dating back at least the last 5 years. So years prior to October 7th, 2023. The Special Commission's charge is broad and addresses anti-Semitism in any venue that you can imagine. But our work has really focused since we launched last fall on K through 12 education, because this is sadly an area where we're seeing Jewish teachers, students, and staff who are afraid to be publicly Jewish in a school setting. And at the same time, we felt that our commission's work, and I really feel our commission's work, can and will have a very high impact in the K through 12 space. So a little bit about the process. We have 19 special commissioners who hail from the Berkshires to Salem to the South Shore. They are all appointed by a statutory mechanism. So the statute allowed that House Speaker to make his choice to chair, and that's how I got that role. The appointees are from the governor, from DESE, from the chiefs of police, and so glad we have our incredible chief who has been a real ally of the Jewish community, and his team have, and his predecessor, Joe O'Connor, was. The District Attorneys Association, and so glad that we have Marion Ryan here, who has a deep reservoir of experience in this work. The Mass Municipal Association, the Superintendents Association, the Jewish Community Relations Council, and other stakeholders have a seat on that commission. We've had nearly 30 hours of hearings, 4 or 5 times that in private meetings held by the chairs, over 60 invited speakers or experts at our hearings, and over 65 members of the public through public comment. And so the product of that work thus far is a set of draft recommendations that we released last month and we recently discussed publicly in a public hearing that focuses solely on K through 12 education. The draft recommendations were recently endorsed by the Boston Globe editorial board and have received widespread support from stakeholders around the state. We've also received some suggestions, and I am working with the co-chair, Senator Vilas, now to incorporate those suggestions, which I expect to be incorporated into a final document by mid-August. But for purposes of our discussion, there's a lot in there now that will stay in there. I think there's probably other things too, but I'll try to highlight what I think you can rely on now. I'd like to first take a moment to summarize the findings, which I think are really relevant and kind of create the foundation for part of the discussion. We have found, as I mentioned before, that anti-Semitism in K-12 settings is pervasive and escalating across the state. This is not a Concord Carlisle issue. It comes in the form of bullying, harassment, discrimination, and there was a significant uptick years prior to October 7th, 2023, that then accelerated after October 7th. The data we have is likely to be significantly underreported for several reasons that may be relevant here, including flaws in local reporting mechanisms, failure to provide clear instructions to school staff about how to identify and report incidents of anti-Semitism and other forms of hate, a lack of centralized tracking infrastructure in the Commonwealth, and importantly, fear of retaliation, or maybe even more pervasively, a concern that the report will not be taken seriously as it concerns anti-Semitism, both of which we have found to be very much based in reality, those fears. Anti-Semitism is causing significant mental health harm to Jewish students and Israeli students and their families. We found that existing programs, and this is really key, we found across the state, including and maybe especially in wealthier communities. So existing programs for students, staff, and educators involving how to address bias, discrimination, or DEI often do not include or barely include anything about anti-Semitism. This includes many districts that have very well-funded and robust programming for other forms of bias and discrimination. Now, mind you, I'm not saying it's always effective, but they do have it, and it leaves out the Jews in many cases. And it includes districts that have had repeated incidents of reported anti-Semitic conduct in the recent past, but nothing changes in terms of how they conduct these programs. There is a lack of understanding among educators and staff about how to identify anti-Semitism, and there's a hesitancy about addressing it. We found that Jewish students report being exposed to teaching material and curricula that are harmful and insensitive in ways that would and certainly should not be tolerated against other minority groups. So when I hear about a teacher holding a class vote on whether the Nazis should be forgiven, I hear echoes of what we've heard from around the state. Holocaust education, and this was mentioned by the superintendent, and let me be clear, besides some great conversations with my interns at the State House who are graduates of CCHS, I'm not an expert in what's happening. My oldest of 4 is 7 years old. So I don't know. I'm not an expert in this. What I'm doing is reporting what we found from around the state. Holocaust education is sorely substandard in Massachusetts. Adherence to the genocide education law that was just mentioned, that was passed in 2021, is exceedingly poor. And even those schools that are complying technically with the genocide education law, many of them are barely teaching the Holocaust, which is a huge missed opportunity because embedded within the Holocaust is so much that is relevant about what anti-Semitism actually is and how it manifests. Sadly, very relevant today. As for the recommendations, to be clear, much of what is in that document is directed at state actors. So DESE, the Attorney General's office, and the Board of Elementary and Special Education. But I'm going to lift up a few components of the recommendations that are directed at school districts or are very relevant for school districts. And I want to note, and I'll probably note specifically, within the recommendations below the line in the footnote are resources to support those who are looking, who like the recommendation and want to see where do I go to find that. We are putting those in the document itself based on what we found to be highly reputable best practices. So, number one, when teaching about digital literacy and misinformation or disinformation, schools should address anti-Semitism, extremism, and common myths and tropes that are showing up. Schools should implement mandatory anti-bias education for school committees and faculties that includes education on anti-Semitism. Again, many school districts, especially the more affluent communities, are already doing this, but they are not including that on anti-Semitism. And I just want to take a moment to note that in Acton, I sat at Congregation Beth Elohim a couple years ago, and the superintendent and the DEI director, who was Jewish, and the principal of the middle school sat with congregants and kids at the synagogue. And they talked for about 45 minutes about the DEI and anti-discrimination programs, and then took questions. And somebody handed up a card and said, how much of this has to do with, anti-Semitism? Because we had just heard about all these middle school kids who had experienced anti-Semitic incident. And this was just such a critical moment. They sat there and they said, none. And the point is, like, what they did after that, which was basically become the gold standard. And that was the beginning of a really important conversation. And there are many steps. And Peter Light, the superintendent in Acton, his testimony was a highlight. It was in our second meeting. We have put the Acton plan in on the website for the special commission. So that is also available to you as a resource. And so, I think the point is, like, there are best practices, some of which I'm sure are being implemented here, some of which may not be, and we want to really lift up some of those. The school district, and this was mentioned, should work with community organizations to include, for instance, programming about Jewish American Heritage Month, like the school district may do for other, important minority groups. The school district mental health personnel, and this one I think is really key, and we have a lot of great resources on it, should be trained on how to support Jewish students who experience anti-Semitism. And we have linked resources on how to do that. When an anti-Semitic incident occurs, school officials, particularly superintendents and principals, should make strong, clear, and timely statements that critically include the word anti-Semitic and Jewish. We have repeatedly seen from around the state that these statements go out and they don't name the type of hate, which itself causes harm. Finally, schools should have transparent policies about the reporting mechanism for hateful incidents. So understanding that there can be, very, very real, as Chair Herchik mentioned, limitations about some forms of transparency. The policy about reporting should be very transparent and available, including issues about curriculum that may need to be raised. Parents should know, families should know how to raise an issue that may involve bias or discrimination against a vulnerable group, and know how to escalate that issue without fear of retaliation. And then finally, and I know my friends Chief Mulcahy and DA Ryan will speak more to this, but hate crimes need to be reported immediately to the police. Thank you so much. I doubt there's time for questions, but I am available to answer them now or anytime. And really, I applaud everybody who's been engaging in this work. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Rep. Cataldo. I think you're such a great resource for us to have in Concord and Carlisle. So we really appreciate the work that you're doing with us and the partnership. You know, we felt it along the way with the schools and just working together with the different boards, the committees, the police department. I think that's really going to be our best next steps moving forward. We had Glenn Kuchar was supposed to be here. So just ask Glenn if you are in the participants, if you could use the raise hand feature so we can find you. And I don't believe that Glenn is here. So Glenn is the executive director of the MASC, which is the Massachusetts Association for School Committees. So he was going to come here today and just talk about what he's seeing across the Commonwealth. But he will be in attendance in our, I believe, August 27th meeting. So there's more opportunity to hear from him later. So with that, I will turn it over to the district, not the district attorney, but our district attorney, Paige Tobin. And Paige Tobin is going to talk about FERPA. FERPA is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. So just very briefly, she's just going to give an overview of that. And then I'm going to turn it over to Mark Howell to introduce both Chief Mulcahy and District Attorney Ryan.
Hey, good evening. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. I was asked to come and speak about FERPA to sort of respond to some questions that have been raised in the community about, what specific information can be shared with the community. So FERPA is a short acronym for the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act of 1974. And it regulates school districts' collection, maintenance, and distribution of student record information and records. FERPA applies essentially to all records and documents and files and other materials in a school that contain information directly related to a student and are maintained by an educational agency or school or by a person acting for the school. Massachusetts also has student record regulations that generally apply to all information concerning a student, which are kept by a school district in a way that the student may be individually identified. These laws require school districts and their employees to maintain the privacy and security of education records and information from those records, and generally prohibit school districts from disclosing, except in very limited circumstances, personally identifiable information in student education records without the express written consent of the parent or eligible student. So even in situations where an individual student or the student's family reveals student record information to third parties or the press, the school district is still prohibited from also revealing or discussing that information. Thank you.
Thanks, Paige. We appreciate that. I'm going to turn it over to Mark now.
Thank you. Thanks, Simon. Thanks, Paige, for that background. In discussing where we would go next as a select board, we thought that we would probably focus on two main avenues coming out of the select board meeting. One of them is the protocols, and the other is community education and engagement. This meeting is part of that engagement. But the protocols that are in place are worth understanding. And so after conferring with Town Manager LaFleur, we thought that it would be helpful if Chief Mulcahy would give us a brief overview. And he immediately named his partner, DA Ryan, and I'm going to let him do that as part of his comments. Thank you, Tom. Not quite off mute yet. There we go.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for having me. I want to thank the select board as well as the school committee for having me here tonight. And I'm pleased to be here to offer the police's help with this very important discussion. And we are here as leaders in this community. We want to work directly with all of the community leaders, from the schools to the school committee, to the select board, and we're here for everyone. These incidents that are reported to us, we have a protocol in place where not only is the district attorney office notified, but the Human Rights Council as well, and depending on the circumstances or the particular incident, the Anti-Defamation League as well as the Attorney General's office is notified. So that's a regular practice of ours as far as notification. And I just want to offer that we're here to work with everyone. We'll continue our work. I'm in constant contact with Representative Cataldo, so thank you, Representative, for being here. I would like to introduce District Attorney Marion Ryan to everyone here. Marion is a wealth of information, and I work quite regularly with her. So I thought it would be appropriate if she would join us tonight and give us a little information as to what's available to us as a community for this very important matter. So, District Attorney, thank you for being here with us tonight.
Thank you, Chief. And I want to thank the Select Board and the School Committee for having me tonight. You know, I hope that what I can give you is a little bit about what has been successful in any number of communities. As many of you know, we have 54 communities across Middlesex County, as well as 21 colleges and universities. No place has been immune from these kinds of incidents. And what we've had the opportunity over the last almost 6 years now, really bringing folks together to work on this, is to see how we can make a difference here, how important, as Representative Cataldo mentioned, the collaboration is. And I really applaud, you know, it's a beautiful evening in the middle of July, and having this many people come together, sometimes we take that for granted. It shows both the commitment of your elected and appointed leaders, as well as the commitment in the community. And what has really worked has been the coming together, that collaboration. Hopefully the collaboration before some things have happened. It's always better if I have your cell phone, you have my cell phone, and we know each other's first name, and we're talking before something happens. And also, if you're able to take advantage of some of the things, you know, the commission has come up with lots of recommendations, and they are wonderful. It can seem daunting as to how are we going to get there. We've got almost 6 years of putting those in place in other communities, so we can talk a little bit about that. And I think what is the piece that sometimes stymies people a bit is it really is my belief that people need not only to feel safe, and we live, fortunately, in a county that is very safe, but they need to be safe. And those are two different things. And in much of this area, we have people who have not been safe because of things that have happened. And we have people that have had things happen, or they've heard about things that have happened, and they don't feel safe. And it's important to think about, you know, the law is very precise about what a hate crime is. And when we are able to charge somebody with that and go forward with that. And to give you a sense, over the last 4 years, we have gone forward with prosecution on about 160 cases. So those are cases that met the standard, where we could meet our burden and we could go forward. It is many times that number where there have been instances of hate, things that are hurtful, hateful, and should not be accepted in a community, but do not meet that standard. And we want to be looking at both of those. So it is important that people are reporting all of those things. Certainly you can report that to the police. For people who might not be comfortable doing that, we've developed a form that we use across the county. It's on our website, which is middlesexda.com. You can fill out a form. You may have seen something, you may have been targeted in an act, and then we will look at that. We will talk to our partners. We will talk to the person filling out the form if they want to talk to us. You can file that form anonymously if you don't want us to talk to you. But we can do a real investigation of what happened. That does two things. It helps us to figure out what is and what is not prosecutable and what protections we can put in place. And it also helps us, just as importantly, to be using our resources to target education. everybody on this call knows that you don't change people's heart by passing a law. You change people's hearts, which is how we address these incidents, many of them, by having those conversations, by educating people. And we've got a sort of a menu of programs that we've developed for that. We've put together an anti-hate, anti-bias task force that meets once a month on Zoom. Anyone can join us for that. The meetings take a combination both of speakers and people talking about things that are happening, what a good practice is. And it's also just an opportunity for people to share what's happening in their communities. So that's one piece. It's a great resource. We've developed a number of programs, particularly targeted at kids in school. We have a social justice roundtable where folks from our office go into the schools and really talk to the kids in small groups about these issues. I will say that when we developed that program, the plan was that it would be kind of a one-time thing. The students love it, so they developed into a series. We'll go to a school 4 or 5 times, meeting with kids in small groups, talking those things through, whether it's something that's happened in their community, something they've seen someplace else, and that's available for them for conversation, for learning. We have put together a digital citizenship program for kids in the schools to really, we can't keep them offline. We all know that being online has encouraged a lot of this behavior. It spreads a lot of what's out there, but this program really teaches them how to be good digital citizens, how to know what's real, how to know what's not, how to be a good citizen in terms both of what they're doing, what they're posting, and what they're letting people know about what they're seeing out there. We have a Know Your Rights program that we bring into the community. We do it both in the schools and for adults, just talking about any number of these areas, talking about what really is a hate crime. You know, it helps people to understand what that is. Things happen. People say, why wasn't that a hate crime? It looks like a hate crime. It's better to have the information. What is the law in Massachusetts? What do we have to prove? Does something meet that? And if it doesn't meet it, how is the community going to address that? That hate crime statute in Massachusetts, and many people forget this piece of it. I prosecuted the case which happened here in Massachusetts in the late 1980s. It was the first time we had an incident that what we now know so well to be hate crime. And it involved a young woman who had come here from the South. She was the daughter of a member of the United States Congress. She was a student at one of our colleges. And because of who she was, that young woman, her first year of school here was really just torture. And it wasn't things that at that time you could charge as significant crimes. There were things like people would go into her room and scribble hateful things on her calendar. Things that were misdemeanors at best. The people who were doing it were smart enough to rotate who was doing it. So you had students who had no prior records, who were doing things that were relatively insignificant. And we couldn't get to what really was the underlying piece here, which was they weren't a coincidence. They were aimed at who she was, and they were targeting her because of that. And that led to the passage in 1990 of the Massachusetts statute. Are there issues that have changed, things that need to be addressed? Yes, we have a couple of bills pending right now that we have filed, which in living with that statute, we've seen things. I'll give you one easy example. The statute as it's presently written requires that if your property is targeted because of who you are, you must be the owner of that property. So where that happens all the time, I'm a tenant. I rent a house. Someone is painting things on my front door, targeting me. I'm not the owner of that property. Unless the owner agrees to be the victim in that case, we can't charge that as a hate crime. That clearly is something that happened in an unintentional way. It's a mistake. We need to fix that. Another piece of it is if you are convicted of the hate crime, it requires that you pay judge can require you to pay restitution to fix what you did. If that money goes to the person who's the named victim, the owner. So for instance, my landlord agrees to be the victim. A person is convicted. Restitution is paid. It goes to my landlord. My landlord right now is not required to use that money to make me whole. The amendments we have would change that. It also, and this is something that I know so many of you have thought about and we're trying to strike a balance in, especially when we have younger offenders. We want to hold them accountable. We want to change their behavior. We don't necessarily want to give them a criminal record that's going to follow them forever. In Massachusetts right now, if you are convicted of one of these crimes, the judge must order that you do an education program. If something happens short of a conviction, if you get pretrial probation, if your case is continued without a finding, it's diverted, the judge does not have to require that education. So we have a bill, that's the most important part of a lot of these cases. We have a bill that would say, even if you don't get that criminal conviction, you can be required to take the education program. So those are lots of the things that we are looking at. We've also had great success in working with communities when something happens of using restorative justice as a way both to hear from the people who've been harmed about what the real impact has been. And one of the reasons I support that resolution is it does require, and we all as adults know how difficult this is, you use that process, it requires the offender. It's different than what happens in court to actually hear from people about what their particular conduct meant and to explain themselves. We all know in any relationship, being held to account and having to explain how you got to where you were is a very difficult process that requires a lot of reflection. So that's been extraordinarily helpful. So I hope that's a good overview of kind of where we are, what's available, what we have seen be successful. We are happy to help in whatever way we can. You have amazing appointed leaders, you have amazing law enforcement state representatives who we are all working together, and that is something that I think can help you to move very far in a relatively short period of time. So I'll be happy to engage in conversation to answer questions if people want to put questions in the chat or any of that. But thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan. We really appreciate you taking your time to be here with us. We are trying to find a way here. The next section of our agenda was a joint board dialogue. And our intention, as Tracy and I were working on this agenda, was to give the board members an opportunity to reflect on what they've been hearing from the community in the last few weeks, and also what they've just heard from our panel here, and pose any questions. And we thought what we'd do is recognize each member of the school committee and the select board to share their thoughts, ask their questions, and take advantage of the people that we have assembled. For those people that are joining us, and there are now 225 of you, I see, we do not intend to take for this to take very long. We very much are here to listen to you, and we'll be coming back after we've had an extensive period of public comment to reflect some more. But I'll just, at this point, open it up. If anybody, let's start with questions. If anyone from the select board or the school committee has a question for one of the panelists that they've already heard from, why don't you go ahead and raise your question. If not, I will call on a member of the select board to see if they want to make, oh, Pam, I see your hand. Go
Yes,
for it.
hey, can you hear me, Mark?
Yes,
Can you hear
we
me
can.
okay? Great. Yeah, so thank you for everybody who's spent some time putting all of this together. And I really also want to thank all those people who are online who are participating in this really important conversation. So I did just want to make a few remarks So first of all, I just want to start by saying that anti-Semitism has no place in our schools or our community. The use of hateful language, whether out of ignorance or intent, reflects real harm. It's unacceptable, and I do condemn it without hesitation. Personally, I don't even like to use the word hate. When I was growing up, my mother treated it like a swear. If we said, she would say, "We do not hate. You can disagree with somebody, but you don't hate people. You don't hate anybody. Period. End of story." And it's a perspective that I've really tried to carry with me, with my family and with others. Unfortunately, as I think Simon Cataldo mentioned, anti-Semitism is rising across the country, and it's found its way into our schools. So I just, in conversations with a lot of people, to me, it comes across that we need a clear response, not just general statements, but a specific commitments to confronting it head on. And I think we are taking that type of action and looking at how we're going to take that type of action. We need to understand the scope of the problem even further. We need to support affected students and make sure that we have clear and effective responses. For me, look, it's part learning as well, learning even more. I don't have all the answers. I'm not always going to say the perfect thing. I am going to keep showing up, listening, and doing my part. I would like to say to the Jewish community in Concord and Carlisle and everywhere, I am sorry you've been subjected to these anti-Semitic acts and symbols of hate. You do have my commitment to seek the best ways to address these issues. And if you'd like to share your experience or your ideas, or even just be heard, I am here, and I do want to be part of this process. So, and I just want to thank everybody again for taking the time.
Thanks, Kim. Mark and I had talked about going back and forth between the select board and the school committee, because I think what we really want to show is we are committed to this work. We're committed to partnership between the schools and the town. And I think having Chief Mulcahy here and our rep Simon Cataldo just really shows you what we're trying to do is really show you that we are listening. And, we've all had a lot of conversations over the past couple weeks, but with that, I will hand it to just who's next in my Zoom screen would be Andrew Herchek.
Hey, thanks. Quick question for Simon. I think you pulled out some tangible recommendations from the commission's work, which were all great. And I know there's more that you can't talk about, didn't have time to talk about. I'm just curious, practically, it's July 22nd and we want to move fast. How would you recommend implementing these? Is it there a couple that you recommend we do sooner rather than later, knowing we probably can't do all of them all at once, but want to get their roadmap? Just want to get your thoughts on kind of implementation.
Thank you, Chair Herchek, for the question. And in some ways, I'm a little bit hamstrung in terms of the answer, because I think that the people on this call are probably much better equipped to assess where the weaknesses are relevant to what the recommendations are. That aside, I would recommend taking a close look at the current, what is currently provided in terms of the DEI infrastructure, anti-bias, anti-harassment, education and training for teachers, mental health professionals, guidance counselors, and seeing where is anti-Semitism included or not. And then taking a real direct approach towards shoring anything up that ought to be shored up. And my suspicion is that when you start looking at that, you may also find other areas that might be improved. I would operate under the assumption that, like many, if not most other school districts, there will be an incident this fall, and approach the rest of the summer in a way where you can kind of make sure you firm up the playbook for what the response is going to be when that happens. In terms of communication with the community, and I think the recommendations provide some support, some assistance there in terms of the exact mode of communication with the Concord Police Department, if necessary, and ensuring that the public knows what the process is. So I'd start there, and then lastly, I just want to kind of double back to sharing how powerful it was to hear from one student at the last select board meeting for me personally, but also to be in that setting at Congregation Beth Elohim and hear from middle school students from Acton and Boxborough, and what an impetus for change that was in my district. There's more, Andrew, but I want to be cognizant of other folks who want to talk. So thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go to Paul Ball.
Yeah, thank you, Mark, and thanks everybody, all 237 of you. It's increasing for being on. I want to make a short statement, and I'm speaking here as a member of the Jewish community of Concord, a founding member of the Kerem Shalom Synagogue, and importantly, as a grandparent with 5 grandchildren making their way through Concord's elementary and middle school. So my family has a lot at stake for the success of the community in this conversation. My personal commitment for taking action on hate incidents dates back actually to the campaign during the DEI forum, well before the ADL complaint. I said then, and I repeat now, that transparency has been sorely lacking to the detriment of the community, and a bright light needs to be shown on these incidents. Based on what I've heard thus far, I think we are starting to turn the page on that and moving forward together. It's indeed unfortunate, though, that it took a complaint from the ADL to shine this light. You know, I think we can agree that the Concord Public Schools, their teachers, their leaders, and educators have a well-established and well-earned reputation for academic excellence, a factor which has brought many of us to town and will continue to bring people to town. So keeping the reputation of the schools is really important. Supporting our schools and helping them to navigate this problem in many dimensions is essential. Now, while I understand the need for confidentiality, but I also understand the need to communicate with the community. So there's a delicate balance here. I personally don't believe that the existence of the ADL complaint should stand in the way of full transparency. Now, I believe that the schools can do this with anonymity without breaching any confidentiality. And we've talked about some of that in how we report these incidents. I do applaud Dr. Hunter's new initiative on updating and improving the school's incident data dashboard on the website. Sharing this information with families is critical to their well-being and to the entire community. And it's a necessary starting point looking forward to conversations with the community. And I think this dashboard needs to be expanded for incidents across the town. This is one of the many big steps forward to help build back the trust that has been dented since the April swastika incident, and the ADL complaint revealed the breadth and depth of the problem. Building back that trust is really essential. Improving policies and procedures in the schools, awareness training are all needed, but the school committee, I think, must reconcile the past in order to move forward. But we need to do this as a community. We need to work together. And I think you've heard that during the select board meeting, you've heard that tonight. I'm sure that the select board will be discussing how to move forward with the school committee in our roles as elected town and community leaders, and to do so in order to improve transparency, to increase the flow of timely information, to have meaningful community conversations, and to improve communication across the town. I think there's good that can come out of this crisis. I look forward to be helping with that. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. And with that, I have Sandeep Pishardi next from the school committee.
Thank you, Tracy. So first and foremost, I want to echo what the school committee statement was and what's been said a couple of times already over here. There is absolutely no place for anti-Semitism in our schools, full stop, right? Condemning anti-Semitism shouldn't be a political act. It's a moral imperative for every member of the Concord community. Safety is not a luxury. It's really the foundation of learning. So if students, Jewish students, do not feel safe in the schools. They cannot take intellectual risks. They cannot grow. They cannot fully engage. Which is why, I support all of the efforts to remain focused on this specific complaint before us, ensure that it is treated with care, fairness, and due diligence. But I want to try and continue the conversations with the community to make sure that we rebuild the confidence in the systems that we have. We strengthen policies, practices, and make sure that we restore the trust. As Cam said earlier, please, members of the community, talk to us. We are trying to gather inputs and understand exactly what's going on in the community. So, open invitation, please talk to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Mary?
Thanks, Mark. I think I believe that discrimination is a town-wide problem, and the people who say hurtful and harmful and hateful things are simply mimicking the behavior of their parents, their grandparents, their neighbors, and their friends. So I think we all have a responsibility to look into our hearts and ask ourselves, what behavior are we modeling? But I am concerned that the victims of this harmful and hateful behavior aren't being cared for. From what I'm reading and from what I'm hearing, a lot of these victims are leaving our schools and they're leaving our towns. We're losing the very people that we should be protecting. And I don't think that's who we want to be. So moving forward, let's be hopeful, but let's not be naive. We need to identify and move quickly. This isn't the time for slow walking. I'm going to stop now because I think we should start by listening. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. And we'll go to Carrie Rankin from the school committee.
Thanks, Tracy. I want to echo what Mary said. I'm going to try to be really short because what I hope to take away from this is really just to listen. There are a lot of people online and I want to hear what they have to say. There is just a very brief couple of things I wanted to mention. In addition, I've had a lot of conversations with people across the community, as I know people, many of you have. And in addition to that, I've read everything, the public statements, the press coverage, the letters to the editor, the ADL's release and supplemental materials and more. And it's been really painful. And simply, the incidents under investigation should not have happened. And I just want to offer my sincere apologies to the families and particularly the students who are impacted by them. I genuinely believe, along with everybody on this panel, that we can do better and that we must do better. And I hope that tonight's joint meeting shows our collective resolve to do that. So again, I really want to start by listening tonight, and but know that I'm committed to action and real change.
Thank you, Carrie. Wendy?
Got to unmute. So I'll be brief. I want to share the same sentiments expressed by others tonight, condemning any and all acts of hate and bias in our community. And I've learned a lot tonight just for the few speakers that have spoken. I am optimistic, however, that there are a lot of best practices out there, and I encourage all of us to look and leverage all of those resources. And Simon, I look forward to that report that's coming out. That'll be great. But also, it sounds like our DA also has a lot of good ideas that we should leverage. I would also remind us as a select board that I know we're committed to helping with education and training for our own staff and for the whole community. I also think that we need to outreach a little more within our own community. We have students in private schools that probably have experienced similar issues. We have references in the library and other places. So we need to look very broadly at where we can provide this education. And I'm sorry that we are even here tonight having this conversation, but I think we're all committed equally to trying to address this in the best way that we can. So thank you.
Thanks, Wendy. Aisha Lawton from the school committee.
Hi, just really quick, as a MECO parent, as a former MECO student in Concord, I just, I stand with our Jewish community. I think it's disgusting, any form of hate. I think that hopefully moving forward, any form of hate we need to be 100% transparent. It needs to be addressed, there needs to be some uniformity, like we need to address it the same way. As a victim of hate in Concord, my son has been a victim of hate in Concord. It breaks my heart that we're even having this conversation. I hope that we move forward in a positive way and move swiftly like everybody wants, and open lines of communication and be 100% transparent. When these things take act, we need to move swiftly and have a working relationship with the Concord Police Department. And if charges need to be sought, they need to be sought, and not, be a little bit more aggressive, because this needs to stop. It's been going on for, 20 plus years. It needs to end.
Thank you, Aisha. How about Lynette?
Hi, everyone. I will also keep it brief. I just did want to make a short statement on behalf of myself and Brian Watterson, who unfortunately couldn't be here from the Carlisle School Committee. We just want to share in the sadness that we're here having this meeting for this reason, but wanted to clarify that Carlisle, our school committee, our administrators, we are all here and ready to be in support of Concord. We want to work together. Our students come together in high school. They all need to be going through the same training for this social emotional learning to be good students and good citizens. And we are here to help support that work. And we share in the sentiment that there is no room for hate in our community and our larger community. So I will continue our listening tonight, but thank you. And I just wanted to let everyone know that Carlisle is here to support and help Concord move forward.
Thank you, Lynette. Michael Williams from the school committee.
Thank you. The allegations that were contained in the complaint filed with the Department of Education Office of Civil Rights, they left me chills in my core. The incidents related in the sentiments expressed to the select board meeting last week by members of our Jewish community and others further amplified my personal distress. Over the 3 weeks since the complaints released, I've carried an additional reminder of the fear, the anger, the helplessness one feels when you're targeted and you know that you're under threat. I'm finally glad to be joined by my colleagues and our other municipal leaders to begin to address this problem in our schools and in our community. My first thought is to offer my hand to all of those aggrieved and to all who feel under threat, and say that I see your threat, I feel your pain, your fear, and I also stand with you, because I know that your pain, the threat, the fear is no different from mine. The same danger that waits for you waits also for me and for all of us, just by whim of fate. I can recall years of incidents that have occurred in our schools and our community that have all inexorably led to this day. Few are publicized, many are held private. The hateful actions and rhetoric of ableism, anti-Semitism, homophobia, transphobia, racism, religious hate divides us all. We can't allow it to continue. In a first sense, this complaint, this moment is actually a gift to us, because its urgency goads us to do something, goads us into action. It's the fulcrum. We have the lever if we only grasp it and use it to make change. So I want to work with everyone on our committee, our public leaders, our other faith leaders, our power centers in the community to bring that change. We need to do something. We need to understand our problem. We don't need to move quickly. We need to move with a plan. And I'm willing to work with all of you to help develop that plan and make an action that makes our schools and our community better. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. So we're ready to hear from the public. Because this is webinar format, you need to raise your hand. We'll call on you in the order that we receive those hand raises, and you'll be promoted and prompted to unmute. We'll try to do this so that the next speaker is also promoted so that we can hopefully have a relatively smooth transition. Tracy and I will alternate calling on you. If you have an opportunity to speak, please wait until there are no others. We would like to hear from as many people as possible, and we do encourage you to keep it brief. In the select board, we try to keep our comments to 3 minutes or less. There are 212 of you after all. Thank you, and I believe we'll hear from Parashar Patel first. Please.
Thanks, Mark. Parashar Patel, 397 Sudbury Court. This is shocking and disturbing, frankly. I think we've all said that. I would encourage two things. One is raise the conversation not just to what can be done by the schools and for the schools, but also the community. Mary's statement, I think, was the first time I've heard an elected official talk about the implications for the broader community. Kids are not learning this from home, obviously, or at home. They may be hearing it at home with their friends, et cetera. It's not just individual students. That's number one. And I think, again, this is just a factual question I'm hoping somebody from the school committee can answer. In the current processes that are in place, because I read the complaint, I don't think I came across any mention if the parents were told or not told, but I'm curious, when events like this occur, are the parents of the students that are accused of being part of the bullying, et cetera, are they actually contacted? Or is it just a conversation between the school's teachers and the student? It's just a factual question. I'm interested in knowing the answer.
Thank you, Parashar. I usually do a spiel in front of our public meeting. That was the one thing that got lost in this. So I'm going to read what I typically read at our public meetings, just so everybody's aware of the parameters. Our public comment period is typically 20 minutes. As this is a joint meeting, we're going to extend our public comment. And we are going to ask if you made a comment at the last select board meeting that you wait until others have had an opportunity. As a reminder, this is a meeting in the public and not with the public. So the school committee and select board will not be responding to comments. We are going to have some discussion after public comment is over. So I just wanted everyone to be clear on that. And with that, Ed LeClaire.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you put on the closed captions for those of us who have trouble hearing?
Let me see if we can do that.
And while you're working on that, I want to comment on tonight's agenda, which is hatred toward Jews. There's no way to make this word disappear until we work as a community, as the school, churches, select board, and we need to be able to commit to being uncomfortable, because prejudice makes the victim uncomfortable. And those of us who are going to work toward resolving it have got to be uncomfortable. There are words that are said in anti-Semitic language and subtle language that we have to confront. And so it would surprise me that 3 of the speakers never used the word anti-Semitic or Jew hatred. We've got to clearly explain to people who are listening to us what this problem is. And I understand we all come from different backgrounds. I was fortunate enough to come from a background that was dominated by Jewish people. I'm a French Canadian, lived in Chelsea, where when I was in high school, 40% of Chelsea was Jewish. And so Jews to me are just the same as French Canadians. They're the people that I lived with, I respected, I fought with, I competed against. And we need to be able to stop dancing around and really make it clear what we're talking about. That these kids in high school who are bullied in the name of because they were Jewish has to stop. And I hope that we'll be able to get some more community people on your committees as you work. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. I believe Craig Miller is next.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, I would, the issue of, or the process of restorative justice was mentioned. I believe that's what we need in this community, which is going to be, as Ed said, uncomfortable. The community has very specific answers about recent events that it wants, has questions that it wants specific answers for, and it deserves those answers. It will be uncomfortable for the leadership. It will be uncomfortable. But the process of restorative justice is one that's recognized and used for issues just like this. And if you're serious about this, and I certainly think you're serious about it, the leadership of our town will engage in that process. Short of that, to say that we're going to do a lot of listening, but again, listening within parameters, very restrictive parameters that you've set, that's not restorative justice. Restorative justice means listening and being held accountable. And I would invite the leadership of the town to do that. Short of that, I doubt your sincerity. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I believe we have Gwen next.
No, I think Jody's next, Tracy.
I don't have Jody on my screen.
Hi,
Um,
can you hear me? It's Melinda Coolish, Gwen's mom, actually.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi,
Just
Tracy.
you can state your name and address. Thank you.
Sure, it's Melinda Coolish at 295 Virginia Road. Sorry about that, I'm a little technologically impaired. But I am a Jewish member of the community. We, my husband and I have rising seniors at CCHS, and they started in the school system when they were in first grade. And I just wanted to talk about our experience really briefly and something important I hope people can think about. So my twins have not, thank God, had the kind of egregious trouble that I read about. Instead, what they say is they have a sense that things happen and nobody does anything about it. They have a kind of hopelessness. And I think it started almost at the beginning. So I have many stories like this, but when they were in first grade, they had a wonderful bus driver. Lori, I told you this story at some point, came in and talked to you about it. Wonderful bus driver, beloved by the school, not an educator. And for years leading up to this point, and I think years after, the parents were told to buy Santa hats for all of the kids on the bus and white t-shirts that were going to be tie-dyed green and red by the older students, the 4th and 5th grade students, that would say Christmas, whatever year it was. And, you know, we're Jewish. So there was no thought that this might make my kids feel uncomfortable. I think for years, teachers saw this happening. The principal of the school saw it happening. Other parents saw it happening. Friends of mine saw this happening, and nobody said anything. And of course, my kids begged me not to say anything because they're the only Jewish kids on the bus, and it would be obvious who's pulling the plug, you know, on what's this wonderful activity, and a kind of beloved bus driver who herself should not be expected to know not to do this because she's not an educator. I think that's one of many experiences that the kids have had, and I have had, where there's a kind of passivity and lack of action that makes us feel on the outside. And if we say anything, we're sort of outing ourselves in a way that makes them and me really uncomfortable. I don't think that that's what caused the kinds of things that happened, but I think it's a breeding ground for that makes it more likely that these kinds of egregious things happen, because it sends the signal that it's okay to leave Jewish kids out. It's okay to marginalize them. And, sadly, one of my kids is looking at the percentage of Jewish kids in all the colleges that she's looking at, because she just doesn't want to go through this experience again. She doesn't want to feel like she's so on the outside. So I just wanted to make sure that I brought this piece up also, because I think it's not criminal, but it's, I think, something I hope the town takes a look at.
Thank you for your comment. Jody, I'm sorry, Sperber.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Good evening. And I echo what Gwen is saying. We've actually already looked at colleges, and our son's only in 8th grade based on some of their rankings on this stuff. But my name is Jody Sperber. I live on Old Bedford Road in Concord, and I come tonight as the parent of a rising 8th grader, a neighbor and a member of the Jewish community. I'll be honest, Paul and Simon stole a lot of my points, but I'm going to continue to have it on the record. I really do appreciate the statements I've heard tonight, and I look forward to holding everyone accountable to their words. From what I've heard this evening, it sounds like we have a tremendous number of resources, which in part just shows how intractable the situation is and how persistently and deliberately we need to act. Trust me, we all wish it didn't take a federally filed brief to force this conversation, but here we are. And to be clear, this is not just about the students. It's about educators perpetuating stereotypes and tropes, dismissing student concerns, minimizing the Holocaust. It's staff and administrators failing to respond appropriately when harm occurs. Acts of hate are not limited to the classroom. They're just embedded in the adult culture that surrounds it as well, and we need to address this. In Jewish tradition, on Yom Kippur, we recite a prayer called the Al-Chet. It's a collective confession of sins. The confession is done in the plural, emphasizing collective responsibility and shared accountability, not just for the wrongs that we commit, but also for the wrongs that we allow, for the silences and for the times that we look away. So every line of this prayer begins the same. Al-Chet shechatenu lefanecha, forgive us for the sins that we have committed before you. And then it goes on to list many ways that we have missed the mark. Al-Chet's not about guilt, but it is about change, and we all have room to grow. This district and our beloved town has unfortunately missed the mark. The recently released ADL brief, along with personal stories and of unreported events that have been shared since then, are really evidence of this. When it's one swastika in a bathroom, maybe you could possibly dismiss it as attention-seeking behavior. When it goes unreported to law enforcement and unshared, it's a failure of duty and obligations. When a student's harassed and threatened repeatedly by multiple peers and adults over the course of a year, it's a sickness that's being tolerated. And when students can form Team Hamas and Team Auschwitz, and this might be the thing in the report that got me the most, that it was teams, not individuals, we're really talking about a systemic failure to acknowledge and protect. So we can't undo what has happened, but we can act now. So I just have 3 things to state before the school year even begins that I think that can be done. One is to name anti-Semitism and acknowledge harm. Say the word anti-Semitism and get used to saying it. Continue to listen with openness and empathy, because some are now speaking up after staying silent in fear. Others spoke up and were let down. We've talked about how trust has been dented. To acknowledge publicly and beyond this group the district has failed will help to more adequately address anti-Semitism. 2 is to share a time-bound roadmap of specific steps that the district and the town will take in the next 3 to 6 months. Show you're not only aware, but actively working to address it by outlining key milestones and deadlines for review, training, engagement, and progress reporting. And 3, clarify language around anti-Semitism in Israel. People are going to conflate the events with world events with local impact regardless. So face it head on and own the conversation. Develop district-wide language that distinguishes anti-Semitism, which is non-negotiably unacceptable, from political speech, while maintaining local school environments rooted in respect and safety, and helping to both teach and model how to engage in difficult topics. And as an unofficial 4th action, take advantage of our truly excellent library system and read People Love Dead Jews by Dara Horn. This book is a really good entry point to understand the emotional and historical weight of anti-Semitism and to reflect on how society too often honors Jews only in death while overlooking their voices, dignity, and contributions in life. This isn't about politics. It's about safety, dignity, and whether Jewish students in the district, including my own son, have the same right to belong as anyone else. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. Next up, we have Mark Girolimetti. I know I'm going to say that wrong. My apologies. Mark, I think you're muted. Okay, while we're waiting for Mark, let's move to
Oh, I'm
Deborah.
here.
Oh, there
Sorry.
you are. Thank you.
Apologies. I was probably flabbergasted, Tracy, because after many times you are really getting good at my last name. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone who has spoken this evening. It's been an incredibly enlightening experience. From the bottom of my heart, I truly appreciate it. But for over a year, I've been sounding the alarm. You've heard me, you've seen the signs, and still we're trapped in the same rut, repeating the same mistakes. I've met with so many families across this community, Jewish families, Black families, LGBTQ families, and families of mixed race and faith. Their stories of bullying and exclusion are nearly identical. Different faces, same trauma, same silence. What's happening now is also reopening wounds from 30 years ago. I know this because a Jewish mother pulled me aside on the sidewalk the other day, fighting back tears as she told me how her child was tortured in school from anti-Semitic bullying and how no one in power stopped it. The issue may ebb and flow, but our story is the same one families are living today. Then leadership looked away, and today destiny has dragged us back to this moment, demanding we face what we have all ignored. This is not about policy, it's about courage. And our school committee and administration to date have not shown it. Words like inclusion and equity mean nothing when we let hate walk through our schools unchallenged. Process is not action. Policy without conviction is not a solution. These are checks on a box designed to move us on while students remain unsafe and families feel abandoned. Real leadership means consequences for acts of hate. It means trauma-informed care for those harmed. It means owning and confronting the truth. This community has tolerated a culture of hate and silence for far too long. At its core, it means simply being a decent, kind human being. I insist that the practice of protecting the image of Concord ends now. Start protecting our children. The time for defense is over. The time for action is immediate. History, especially this year, is watching us. Our kids are always watching us. Doing the right thing is not complicated. It is expected. Who will step up for our children? Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Deborah Dorfman.
Thank you. My name is Deborah Dorfman. I live at 27 Lang Street, and I am a Jewish member of this community. I don't have any children. However, I've spent my career representing children with disabilities. And I also grew up in the Midwest where these types of acts of hate occurred all the time, of anti-Semitism, and I experienced them personally. And I'm really heartbroken to see that the kinds of things that were happening in Iowa, where I grew up, are still happening today, years and years later. I'm very disappointed, and I am really expecting that the district And the town will do the right thing and take measures. First of all, the leadership has to demonstrate that you mean it, that you're really going to make the changes and that these are going to be lasting changes. These cannot be changes that we talked about today and people feel like, oh, okay, maybe that will work. There's going to have to be a lot of follow-up and a lot of monitoring to make sure that changes are effective, they're meaningful, and they're going to last. And I urge you to do that, because if you don't do that, I promise you, we'll be right back here again. And so we really need that commitment. We need transparency. So I am well aware, I'm an attorney, I understand about FERPA, I understand about all sorts of confidentiality and respect that and understand that's the law and you have to follow the law. But that doesn't prevent transparency in other process and other information that you can share within the bounds of the law. And I really, really ask that you do that, because that will help to repair the trust that, unfortunately, as others have said, is really being chipped away at. And we really need that in order to go forward. So that's what I wanted to share. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Deborah. Wilson Odomon.
No. Thank you so much. I'm going to do my best to speak frankly, both as a rising senior within the CCHS community and as a resident of Concord. The first time I remember the school addressing anti-Semitism, they sent an email shortly before the school-wide assembly last January. But in the email, they only mentioned the swastikas drawn in the bathrooms, and of course they had the usual statements about how the school was opposed to all forms of hate. But both the email and the subsequent assembly gave very little hint of how deeply the issue went. The vandalism was obviously concerning, and the school's opposition to hate is admirable, but it left the impression that this was an isolated incident that could be chalked up to a few bad apples. Maybe one or two students intent on causing trouble vandalized school property with the most perverse and antagonistic symbols they could think of. There was no mention of widespread and persistent bullying. There was no mention of soccer teams being split up into Team Hitler, apparently, which is, frankly, astounding lack of subtlety, as well as an astounding, or disappointing, more so, act of anti-Semitism. There was no mention of students sig-hailing at students in the hallways. These omissions, which were bluntly a failure to explain the depth and the breadth, sorry, of the problem, may have been in part why the assembly seemed to not resonate very well with the student body. There are edge cases and there are nuances to be found in everything right now, but a lot of this hearing seems to be missing the forest for the trees right now. None of these incidents were on the border of being anti-Semitic. They were, and they are, blatantly and openly very anti-Semitic. We don't need to debate definitions about what is anti-Semitism, or is this anti-Semitism, is that anti-Semitism. We need to talk about what we are planning to do. In essence, we're playing word games about a very clear-cut matter. The blunt truth is this. There are students who must remain anonymous for legal reasons, but who are known to the relevant authorities within the school, in the school system, who have been harassing and bullying students for years based on nothing more than religious affiliation. There was never any ambiguity to the anti-Semitic nature of these incidents. The people who have been subjected to these attacks apparently haven't failed to report them. Rather, if all the allegations can be believed, at least one of the victims was moved from the classroom, titularly as part of a safety plan drawn up by the school, while the perpetrators of this bullying still remain among the student body. Frankly, it seems like a blatant disregard for the school's own guidelines for dealing with bullying, not to mention any better guidelines that could have been put in place. As Mark said, policies without actions don't mean anything. The students perpetrating these actions know exactly what they are doing, and unless they lack both a moral compass and a brain, they should know the impact it's causing. President Roosevelt, I know that's cliche, but I have to say it, said that no man can tame a tiger into a kitten by stroking it. The same is true here. Why do we think proposed solutions about new reporting forms and holding assemblies would work? We are dealing with an assortment of anti-Semitic students who have decided to make their moral shortcomings into everyone else's problems, not misguided schoolyard bullies who don't know what they're doing. You can't educate people who don't want to be educated. The internet and social media, especially during the COVID years, seems to have taught people that they can basically just say whatever they want and that they will never face any consequences for their actions. I believe that they should be thoroughly disabused of this notion. The administration, for the most part, already has the tools it needs to handle the problem. They just haven't used them. The administration has the ability, the authority, and dare I say the responsibility, to make use of their many disciplinary actions they have in their toolbox. Why they haven't fully done so remains a mystery, at least to me. A pattern of sustained and targeted bullying is already enough to merit suspending a student on its own as per the school's own guidelines. And targeted bullying on the basis of gender, race, sexual orientation, or religion is an even more clear-cut case for disciplinary action to have been taken. And it doesn't seem that at any meaningful level disciplinary action was taken, other than removing the targeted student from the classroom. What the school needs, more than changing definitions, more than having new forms, more than training people who fundamentally don't want to be trained about why what they're doing is wrong, is to ensure that the perpetrators of these anti-Semitic acts are subject to all proper disciplinary actions, the frameworks for which already exist. And frankly, they should have been subjected to these disciplinary actions long before there was a need for a hearing about this. And secondly, there should be a working committee made up of students, faculty, administrators, and the relevant community members, and let them focus on this plan. Let the people most involved within this issue draw up a plan for solving it. Instead of trying to change the situation from on high, let the change come from below. We need to tackle the broader issue of anti-Semitism within the school. And basically, the time for half measures and training and all of these things is over. There was never really a time for half measures. We need to acknowledge the problem that's facing us, and we need to take concrete and direct actions to change it. Thank you.
Do we have, okay, I see a couple more. Maybe we can promote Brian Farber.
I'm sorry, people's hands are coming and going a little bit, so
No worries.
I think Brian put his down. Scott, though, we promoted.
Scott Smigler, why don't you?
Up Brian's hands back up. I'll come back to you, Brian.
Hey, everybody, Scott Smigler. So we've heard concerns that the anti-Semitism students are experiencing may not be isolated incidents, but part of a broader systemic issue within the schools, affecting surely Jewish students and other students of other backgrounds who are facing this on a daily basis, which is, it's heartbreaking. We've also heard accounts, including from students or former students, of administrators and teachers minimizing these incidents in ways that made students feel unsafe. To remind you of what a former student said at last week's school committee meeting, she sat in an assembly meant to address the swastika incident this past year. An adult in the room rose to challenge the premise, arguing that data shared regarding anti-Semitism was overstated. And she reported that nearly every student in that assembly cheered. Just imagine for a minute being a Jewish student sitting in that assembly, having experienced that. I'd like to hear more from school leaders. Dr. Hunter, what did other adults in that auditorium say after that comment? Who stood to rise? Who rose to challenge that and to show support and to model for the other students in that assembly where the focus should be in that moment? Are these concerns about staff behavior isolated, or do they point to a wider pattern as alleged in the ADL report? I don't know, but I hope you know. I hope you understand that scope. And if they are isolated, I hope you'll tell us, because that would go a long way. Or if they're not isolated, I also hope you'll tell us and be transparent without naming names, but help the community understand the scope of the issue. Are these concerns isolated, or do they point to a wider pattern? And what actions are you taking to make sure that you understand the full scope of the problem beyond the easy theories that people are just learning hate at home? I'd also like to take a brief moment to thank you, Representative Cataldo, for your leadership on this issue, and say how sorry I am for the anti-Semitism that's been directed to you as a result of you standing up for children in our schools. Regardless of your politics, anybody in this room, you have a duty to stand up for this man, because by standing up for students, he is receiving hate on his own. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Brian Farber.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak before you all. I'm also very thrilled to come to people after Wilson. Wilson, you did an extraordinary job, and I just want to compliment you on everything you shared. And I think you and many people who are sharing messages with me and amongst us now are thrilled by what you've shared and appreciate you very much. We see you. I know you can't, both boards, the select board and the school board and school committee cannot answer questions, but I'm happy to take your responses, and I know other people will be happy to accept your responses in writing, I presume once they've gone through legal discussions. So I'd like to know, not specific to the ADL complaint, what sanctions are taken when students are found to have committed anti-Semitic hate in the schools? I'm not asking about any specific student. I'm asking, what is the general protocol after investigation is done and a student has been found to have committed an act of hate? So I think many people would like to learn that, and that has come up. I'd also like to know, because as I've spoken to many people on this panel, but also other individuals, as Mark had mentioned earlier, anecdotally meeting many people through this issue, how many students have left this school in the last 5 years because of bullying or because of hate, which is really together, they're one and the same? Because we hear more and more about students and families who have had to make that difficult decision to leave our school. And also, I'd love to know what the cost to our school is for all of those, and the dollar amount is in the is for that. So just like to get a sense of that. Also, I'd like to know, Dr. Hunter, I appreciate the time that you took to spend with me speaking about the issues. And I know you couldn't go into detail, and I really get a sense that you want to, and you have things you'd like to share and say, and I appreciate that. You mentioned one issue is that there's limited data on Jewish sentiment, I believe that was what you were saying, among students, and that it hasn't been collected, and you want to make the promise that you're going to change that so you really understand Jewish sentiment in the school and what they're experiencing, which I think is great. So a number of us would like to know what steps will be taken and on what timeline to ensure that the data collection is ready to go at the start of this year or very early in the year, so more kids don't have to suffer what they have been. A couple more questions. How does the school respond to some of the MTA's approved content, including images and other content that is openly anti-Israel? And I know many of us can have very different debates on Israeli policy, but anti-Jewish hate, which some of these materials do espouse. And if new anti-Semitism training is mandated for teachers, what happens if, and we could probably presume when, the union says no based on their votes? What happens in that kind of moment? For the town board, one cause of anti-Semitism is marginalization and forced irrelevance. So I'd like to know what your timeline is for moving the menorah that's hiding out in the dark during the winter at Rideout into the center of the town, so you can be seen as well. And also, I want to echo Scott. Representative Cataldo, you are extraordinary, and we are lucky to have you. I hope you know that. I hope you feel it. We are in love. So thank you very much. And it's not just for this incident, but it's also just all the good you do generally and how present you are. Thank you for letting me speak and ask those questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Jay Ablowitz.
Yes, thank you. Jay Ablowitz here. We've lived in Concord for 11 years, and when my spouse and I chose Concord, it was because of the schools, despite the very small Jewish community. Now, however, it's the schools themselves that are making us question that decision. After October 7th, our district dragged its feet on any statement to support Jewish kids, despite prompt declarations on Ukraine, Black Lives Matter, and even the Colorado Springs nightclub shooting, which was communicated the very next day. I emailed the superintendent and copied our DEIB director. Dr. Hunter replied later that week, but the DEIB director never did. There was really no support for Jews. Even more outrageous is the DEIB website and newsletters contain only a token mention of support for Jews, a single link to the ADL, despite Jews being targets of 70% of religious hate crimes. And the DEIB director allegedly dismissed the word kike as a mere microaggression. Worse, in October 2024, the DEIB director was reportedly sharing social media influencers who post anti-Semitic content. State Rep. Simon Cataldo's commission exposed the Mass Teachers Association for spreading anti-Semitic, one-sided anti-Israel materials to educators. This isn't abstract. It's training that seeps into our classrooms. That kind of bias shapes what our kids hear, and disturbingly, it matches what Jewish families are telling us they've heard from teachers at CCHS. Earlier this year at Thoreau Elementary School, during lunch, my rising fifth grader, yes, fifth grader, heard a classmate shout, "Jews are gay." He reported it to Principal Sparks, filed an incident report form, and turned it into a teachable moment. But the student received at most a phone call home. The child should have been suspended or faced harsher consequences. Hate like this comes from outside the school, social media, parents, the wider world. But how we respond matters. One decent reaction doesn't fix a broken system. Just this week, I've heard from other parents whose kids face similar bias. How many more go unreported? I'm done with the empty, "we don't tolerate hate" statements. Tonight, I demand transparency. How many anti-Semitic incidents have been reported district-wide in the last year? What did you do, and what support was provided? Concord's promise of inclusion must be more than talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. And it appears as though we have 5 more hands up. So we will go to Jay. Nope, we just said Jay. Sorry. Hope Rubin.
Hi, my name is Hope Rubin. I live at Sawmill Road in Concord. My husband and I have lived in Concord for 37 years. Our children graduated from CCHS. I am here not as a parent of a child currently at the schools, but as a Jewish resident of Concord. I am outraged by the news reports and the filed complaint of pervasive anti-Semitism at the Concord Middle School and Concord Carlisle High School. It is horrifying to read about the lack of response by the school administration for years. Anti-Semitism and racism are very sadly alive and well in our schools. The Concord and Concord Carlisle learning environment is failing its students by allowing anti-Semitism and racism to go on unchecked. This is what I need to see and hear. First, a clear and unequivocal standalone statement by Dr. Hunter and by each school committee member condemning anti-Semitism, period. Call it for what it is. Anything short of that leads to acceptance of anti-Semitism and eventually violence. The select board, I would hope, would work with the Jewish community to draft and issue a town proclamation condemning anti-Semitism. Second, a detailed plan for day one of the 2025-2026 school year that communicates the reporting mechanism and the direct and immediate consequences for employees and students who engage in anti-Semitism and racism. There's no doubt that this behavior will once again occur because nothing has been done to stop it. Third, immediate reporting of anti-Semitic and racist incidents to the Concord Police and to the community when an act occurs. Lastly, my hope is that Concord schools and Concord as a community will step up now to address the serious problems of anti-Semitism and racism in our town. I thank you for this meeting tonight, and I look forward to hearing the progress that occurs. Thank you.
Thank you, Hope. Kim Frederick.
Hi, thank you so much for taking time to listen. I want to say my appreciation to all of the officials that are here, and thank you for the words that you've spoken tonight. I am a resident of Concord. I live at 166 Main Street, and I have 3 kids who've gone in Concord Public Schools. One is a rising senior at CCHS, and one is a rising 7th grader at Concord Middle School. The other is currently out of district. And my children are both Jewish and African American. And when I said to my daughter, hey, have you heard about this case? And talked to her to ask her if she had seen or experienced any of these things in the schools. And she kind of looked at me and said, yeah. She's like, and it'll be really nice if they do something about that, but could we stop it with having to hear the N-word every day? And apparently this is now so totally widespread that it is just a daily occurrence for her. And was talking with a friend of hers who is Arab, and he has been told that that it's too bad that we didn't bomb all of you, another student said to him, and has called him a towel head and called him a desert rat. So, you know, it is really a big problem. As a house parent at Concord Academy, I've heard stories of boarding students who've come back and have been chased around town being called the N-word by kids in cars. So it's really like a town issue. And I know that it's manifesting in the schools in a really particular way. But I think I agree with the statements of people who say, like, we need to work on this as a town. I think the schools are not the only place it's happening. And they're not the only place where the impact hits. So I guess I would love to see some of these actions take place in terms of having more reporting mechanisms, in terms of doing more education. I love the idea of restorative justice and the idea of teaching, particularly for young people, having these be teachable moments. I don't expect that, you know, some people have talked about changing people's hearts, and that's a great thing to hope for. I really want to see the behavior change. And I think we have the tools to do that. And so let's change these behaviors. Thank you very much. I really appreciate everyone's commitment.
Thanks, Kim. We're going to take 4 more comments because those are all the hands that are raised. We're going to take Michael Amster.
Thank you for having this discussion. It's becoming more and more important. This brings to mind a situation with my son, I don't know, 25, 30 years ago, where he had a friend over as a sleepover, and he came to me and he said, you know, Dad, he said that we killed Christ. And I didn't know exactly how to deal with that, so I probably didn't do what I would do now, but I was aghast that was that happened. Now, this coming from a 10-year-old child, he didn't come up with this by himself. We've talked about how we need to deal with the kids in school. Part of this, I think, is to deal with to do education with parents, because 10-year-olds don't come up with this on their own. And another thing that has struck me is that we've spoken primarily about the high school. This needs to start in the elementary schools, unfortunately, but yes, and as well as the middle schools. So let's not leave this out of the purview of the at least the teachers in the middle school and the elementary schools. So thank you all, and let's hope we can change and make things happen, rather than just to say, yeah, this is a really bad thing. We need to stop it. Thank you.
Thank you. Leela?
Hi, my name is Leela Jacobson. I'm a Concord resident on Walden Terrace.
Thank you for having this session tonight, and thank you to everyone who's already spoken. I guess I want to acknowledge that communities across the country are struggling with rising and virulent anti-Semitism. And I think the thing that is really the differentiator is how they respond. And we have not responded well. How the school and the leadership has been responding to date has been unacceptable. And I think that I hope that we are all in agreement on that. But I think what's important is to acknowledge that mistakes have been made honestly and vulnerably, and then we can move forward with a very purposeful course of healing and of action. I want to echo a lot of the actions that Hope Rubin said and not be redundant. And I want to add to those, echoing others. I think that really abundant and generous opportunity for students and families to express whatever they need to communicate to heal, so that they feel heard, they feel seen, they feel that their suffering has been honored, has to happen. And there's going to need to be really significant outreach to make sure that that happens, because I don't think that there can be true healing until each individual student and family knows that their pain is heard, is witnessed, is understood. And then I think also, and I know that all of you are in a difficult place because of the lawsuit, but each of those things needs a really robust response of that this is totally unacceptable, that this is atrocious, this is ugly and awful. These things should not be subjective. Like, these are just unacceptable acts. And our town needs to hear that from you, our leadership. It really starts with you and your reactions to these. And I'm including tonight, I'm hopeful that when the speakers are done, there will be some commentary from our leadership, how totally atrocious and unacceptable all of these things that you have heard are. And I think that I praying that mandatory training from a professional organization will be part of your action steps for all of your faculty, staff, and leaders from an organization like ADL or JUF, because it's clear that some people are fighting explicit bias, and there's also invisible bias going around, and a sort of process of self-reflection, honest and vulnerable self-reflection, to identify where in the system all of this bias exists so that you can root it out and repair and correct it, I think is absolutely necessary. Other actions that other schools who have come under similar complaint or lawsuit have taken is to be explicit about the consequences and punishments and communicate those proactively, and lay out a framework going all the way from apologies to suspensions and expulsions. And most of all, and this is what breaks my heart, kids need adults that they can go to, that they can trust, who they can report these things to, and they will be elevated, and they will receive compassion, and they will receive action and response. So until kids know that they have someone to go to, I think the healing will not continue. And I think that also the curriculum needs to be looked at with an eye for bias, honoring the current anti-Semitic climate and Jewish suffering. And I also hope that you I just want to actually wrap up by saying I went to a candidate session for school committee and I asked, what are you doing about anti-Semitism? And there were such wise, thoughtful, and sensitive comments back. And I thought, okay, I have a good sense of trust here. And I feel so deeply disappointed and crushed that you had the ideas, you knew what to do, but no action was taken. And I just really encourage you to, strive to do better. You have the instincts to do what is right. And so now you just need the courage to follow through with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Layla. And we have been taking public comment for almost an hour now. We are going to go next to Pamela Dritt.
Hi, Pamela Dritt, 13 Concord Green. I hope that you can find a way to share what happened without sharing the names of the students. For example, student 1 or a senior student 2 or things like that, with information that is transparent so that we know what happened without the individuals involved being exposed. My church recently lost a giant donor. Okay. It would be, and we had to change the amount of money we spent on the church. And so it made a big difference. But because the people in charge felt that they needed the privacy reasonably, we weren't told why we lost that donor. Was it because they died? Was it because they moved away? Was it because they were upset with the church? Now, surely sharing the reason would have made an immense difference in our ability to understand without invading anyone's privacy. So we need to, there's a balance between transparency and protection of and privacy. And it's not black and white. So please look to go as much as you can towards maximizing both. And my son had humans are tribal. That's where we get our community identity, belonging, team spirit, altruistic mutual help within communities, and also division into us versus them, racism, anti-Semitism, anti-Catholicism, anti-atheism, hate, homophobia, bullying, and war. And a conflation of criticism of individuals who belong to any group with an ism against that group is also a problem. We have to make sure that criticism of Israel is not conflated with anti-Semitism. And that all of the members of our community are involved in identity groups of some sort that are oppressed. My son had, when he was in first grade at Thoreau School, he had a first grade teacher, Mrs. Watson, who had a brilliant lesson on diversity, which I found out because she had all the parents come in, she had filmed it and made a little movie for us. And I sat there in Will's little chair with tears running down my cheeks because her lesson was so beautiful and the kids taught themselves. She handed out beautiful fall leaves and then asked the kids to group themselves into groups based on those leaves. And when they did, then she went around and each group talked about what their leaf group was. And when they had all done that, then she dropped the bombshell. She said, now I want you to make new groups based on your leaves and see how inclusive you can make them. And you could see their minds explode as they got the concept that the ways they had grouped themselves was not set in stone. Just like the ways we group ourselves as race, as religion isn't. And I think that that can be, that lesson and the kids began to realize. One little guy said, "I know, we can make a leaf group because we're all leaves." And one little girl, couple of little girls didn't like that because they wouldn't get to spend as much time with their friends. But they did learn that, and then they started expanding the whole idea. We're all in the same grade. Yeah, we're all first graders, so we're all in the first grade group all across the world, and we're all in, because we're students, we're all in school, and we're in the school groups all around the world, and even the people, because we're standing on the same earth, and even the people in airplanes are flying in the same world, and you could see that they began to understand the unifying parts of humanity that we have, despite the others. And I think we could use that as a core curriculum thing that would work for adults and kids too, to help.
Thank you, Pamela. I think we're going to take our last comment from Andrea Fonserrata. Andrea?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I would also like to thank everyone for holding this meeting and for welcoming this conversation. I've read with deep concern the report documenting the recent incidents at the school. And I have a question. Several of these occurred in front of other students. Could you please help us understand how these other students responded in the moment? Are students intervening when they witness this behavior? I am asking to better understand how pervasive the issue is and how students are experiencing the overall school climate so that we can help support meaningful and lasting cultural change.
Thank you, Andrea. I want to thank everyone for making their public comment tonight. We are always available by email or at any of there's a select board meeting on Monday night where they'll be taking public comment. The next school committee meeting is on August 20th, but you can certainly email either one of the boards or both boards, and we will take your public comment just as we would take it verbally. And with that, we are going to move into kind of reflection portion of our meeting, and then the select board will adjourn after that. And I would ask if Rep. Cataldo or Lori Hunter, Carrie LaFleur, if Tom Mulcahy, if you'd like to participate, you could also participate in that. So I guess if you are a member of the select board and the school committee and would like to say something, you can use the raise hand feature. What I realize is it does take us in alphabetical order. So we'll be going in alphabetical order between the select board and the school committee.
Thanks, Tracy. Yeah, we thought that this was an opportunity to come with some initial reactions. I think that we're hearing loud and clear that culturally we need to get over the everything's okay, I'm just fine version of Concord and start to address the problem that's really in front of us. And I think you're hearing a commitment to do that from our board. And I'm at this stage of the game, I'm interested in some of the whys, asking ourselves some of the questions of why are these things happening, but also really more importantly, how can we work to change the community response to this, to change the expectations on the adults, the children, the administration, the staff, and everyone else that comes or visits Concord, so that we can begin to be a place where these things don't occur anymore. Michael.
First, I guess I want to thank every voice that we've heard. I think they've given us our direction. Our community is telling us what they expect of us and pointing us in the direction that we need to go. We have to act. We have to act quickly, but we do have to act smartly. I don't think that I know certainly speaking for myself that I'm not smart enough to get the solution. But I also know that there are professionals that we can find, professionals that we can ask to help us move in the right direction. We've got a lot of information. Earlier today, I was looking at the youth risk behavior survey from the past few years, and I was looking at the study just done this past January. I keep messing up the name. Paragon, I believe. I might have it wrong, but if you look into that, you see that our own information is telling us there are groups that are at high risk. There are groups that are in great need. And there are groups that have been telling us that they feel uncomfortable. So we have the information. We need to listen to our community. We need to seek the professionals that can help us to construct a plan. We can look at best practices and models of surrounding communities that have succeeded where perhaps we haven't. But we should be humble and mindful of the fact that with good faith and good effort, we've missed the mark. We should reach out to our community members, everyone that is feeling pain and is afraid, and remind them that we have them and we hold them. Then we should get to work and get busy because we need to do this for our students and for our community. So that's what I've taken from this. And to my core, something that I know we have to do. So we should get to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And we'll go on to Paul.
Hi, just quickly, I heard loud and clear, a very loud call to action. I think Michael mentioned that. I think it's quick action, but it's smart action. And I think there are several lanes of action that we need to figure out. There's a school committee lane of action. There's a select board lane of action. I say this as elected officials. And then I think there's a group school committee select board lane of action for the town. I think we have a lot to do. I also heard about the word accountability, and I think accountability in two dimensions. One is accountability for fixing this with the help of the community. As elected officials, we have to figure out how to fix this in the near term and the long term. I also heard about accountability for reconciling what happened and why in a way that doesn't breach confidentiality, that gets to the root cause. And there has to be some accountability here. And because if there's no accountability, we're not going to be able to learn off that and move forward. So loud call to action, loud call for accountability. And I think we're all in this together. Okay. Thank you.
Sandeep.
Thank you first of all to everybody who spoke tonight. I hear the pain, I hear the fear, I hear the frustration in all of your voices, and I'll carry it with me. Anti-Semitism has absolutely no place in our schools. It doesn't have any place in our town. Every child that walks into the school district needs to feel safe, seen, and valued. And as a school committee member and as a parent, I want you to know we'll take this seriously. We owe it to our students to protect them, to act thoughtfully, and to do better, and we'll do it together.
Thanks, Sandeep. Carrie.
Thank you. I just want to echo like a very loud thank you to everyone who shared this evening. Something that Representative Cataldo said and that I've read and heard throughout this moment is that I think I'm going to quote Representative Cataldo that he said some people are, quote, afraid to be publicly Jewish. And that just has really stuck with me. It's a difficult statement to hear, to read, and to honestly to fully comprehend. So in that, it took a ton of courage to speak up tonight, and I just want to say thank you. We hear you, and there's clearly a lot of work to do, and I don't think any of us has the answers this evening, but we hear that action needs to be prioritized. So thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Mary Hartman.
Yeah, thank you. I also want to thank the people who came tonight and had the courage to be honest about how Jews are treated here in Concord. I find that when people are angry, they're honest. So it was very good to hear people be honest. I appreciate that. Out of all I've heard, though, I think the thing that's going to haunt me the most are the words that I heard from Wilson Odwan. And it kind of echoes what other people say about bad behavior and how are we handling bad behavior and accountability. So I think those are the things that are going to haunt me when I reflect on what I heard tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Lori.
Yeah, I think I'm going to certainly reiterate your thanks. And I think what I heard is there's urgent work and then there's long-term work. I think some of the urgent work is getting those communication strategies in place as to how we do balance transparency and facts and student privacy. I'm very eager to have those conversations. And I think the policy Simon recommended on let's set that stage so we all know how it's going to happen going forward would be very, very welcome by the schools for sure. None of us are denying some things happened, and I, for tonight, can't get into any of the incidents specifically. It's incredibly important to know that we do respond to the best of our ability, but that doesn't mean we don't have room to go. Clearly we do. And that's work we're committed to. And I know just in working with the staff and leadership team and parent community on other hard issues, when we're all in the same boat, we do make progress in this community. And I just leave with a lot of hope that the energy, as hard it is, it's a hard energy, right? It's not this positive momentum energy, it's a hard energy. But I just think that we can make change for the better, and I'm really glad that this has become a launching point tonight.
Thank you, Lori. Wendy.
I just want to thank everyone for their courage and honesty tonight. I think it's very hard to listen to, but it clearly is a call to action. We heard it last week and we heard it again tonight. I think we also owe it to our community to get back to the community on what we're doing. So as a leadership group, we need to think about our communications out to the community. We obviously have a lot of work to do, but even if we don't have a full plan, we need to let people know what we're doing and what our plans are and how we intend to act. But also actions speak louder than words. So we need to focus on that as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Wendy. I just really wanted to thank the over 200 people that were here tonight. I think it was a really important start in the conversation. It's really challenging for us as elected officials to have conversations in public meetings. I think we really did the best we could to listen. I want to say that there is no place for anti-Semitism. There is no place for racism, and there's no place for homophobia in our schools, in our towns. And we are one community, the school and the town together. And I think that this is a really great opportunity for us to work together as boards, as people that live here, people that work here, to make our community better. And the only way to do that is by collaboration and working together. I want to thank Rep. Simon Cataldo for being here, for Chief Mulcahy for being here, for District Attorney Marion Ryan. And I think there's definitely, and Carrie LaFleur, sorry, I didn't want to leave anybody out. Thank you to our town manager for being here. I think that, we have a path to move forward and we have to do it together. Thank you.
So we'll pick up the thread of select board led action and alternatives when we meet on Monday. As many people who were here tonight that were also attending our board, we know that the DEI Commission had done some work that was actually in progress even before we became aware of the brief that was filed. They are in the process of updating that work, and we'll hear something about that, as well as begin to try to craft what we can do from a community response. I've been really pleased with the outreach that we've received, the offers of help, and the genuine concern about how do we move forward together. If we don't have enough resources and brain power, commitment, intelligence to do this, then no community does. I think we can do Concord proud by first recognizing the problem and then really digging into that problem. And I'm looking forward to continuing that work with all of you. With that, unless we have any objection, I'm ready for the select board to adjourn its meeting. Do I hear an objection?
I make a motion that the select board adjourns.
Thank you. Was that a second, Paul?
Second, yes.
That's, so adjourned at 7:20. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Some of us will want to stick around and listen
you.
to the school meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. The school committee is going to continue with its school committee meeting, and I'm just going to pull up our agenda.
Tracy, could we take like a 2-minute break? That be okay?
Yes. Okay, let's take a 2-minute break. And if you were on the panel, please mute yourself and your screen, and we will be back in 2 minutes. All right, we're back. Okay, our next agenda item is Story of the Schools, and I am going to turn that to Carrie to give us an update. And just as a reminder, Carrie, Brian Watterson, and I are all on the Story of the Schools committee. And now it looks like our friend Glenn Kuchar is in the audience. I just saw him, Glenn. I think he was here listening, but you can keep attending our meeting. And want to be promoted to a panelist to join us, you can, but we're just going to keep going with our meeting. Go ahead, Carrie.
Okay, this is a hard pivot, so bear with me. Okay, we were talking about the Story of the Schools. This is a very new committee, as we've discussed, and so I want to just sort of take a step back and share the context and the goal of this document, essentially. So over the last couple of years, we have heard from the community that they want to hear more about what's happening in the schools. And this is largely, this is probably universal, but also true among the people who do not have kids in the schools and don't have direct access through principals or Dr. Hunter or otherwise. And so during our goals discussion last August of 2024, we had a discussion about a community relations and communication goal. And we set a number of 2 goals around that. One was around increasing coffees and trying to publicize them more so that more people could attend them. And a second one was, I'm just going to read it. The goal was, it's goal number 4, and it stated to tell the story of the school. The school committee will take lead on a process to write a comprehensive overview of the 2 school districts to explain to taxpayers, students, and parents alike what the school provides, the outcomes from the investment in learning, amenities, programming, and the value of the Metco experience, as well as the whole student experience. So the purpose of this really is to, the purpose of this really was to, kind of build a bridge and find connection with the community, and to invite them into the buildings that they might not have access to on a regular basis. So over the course of last year, we established a communications working group, which, as Tracy said, consisted of me, Brian, and Tracy, and also Dr. Hunter. We met multiple times throughout the course of the year. We talked about We wanted it to reflect the strategic plan, the values of the school. We wanted it to have a lot of student voice, and we started writing it. We also acquired a graphic designer to help us, make it look presentable with pictures and graphics and whatnot. And we got pretty close to a product that we hoped. The goal was to have something to share at both the Concord and Carlisle town meetings in May and June of last year. Understandably, after the tragedy occurred in the high school in April, this project, like many others, was put on hold. We wanted the district needed, and the school committee as well wanted to really prioritize families and students and the broader community who were grappling with an unimaginable tragedy. So we put it on hold. We then decided to pick it back up over the summer, and in the hopes that this is something that we could revisit and update with new data, because a lot of the data was focused on the 23-24 school year, since we were writing it last year. So update it now. If we're looking at the fall of 2025 release, we would update it with data from the 24-25 school year that we have that's available to us. And then any other changes or edits that we want to see. All this to say that we have a draft, like a draft, a very good draft, a working draft, but it is a draft. It is incomplete, it is outdated, and it was written with the intent of it being released last spring and not next fall. So we are in the process of updating it. The goal that brings us to today, the goal was to do that work as a working group, have a draft that was updated and in what we felt was a good position to share with the committee and get feedback before we called it final, and to share it with the community. In the meantime, we received a public document request from the Bridge for the draft, which made me, as the chair of the working group, incredibly uncomfortable because, first of all, it's not something that, while we did it in public, it is not something that is ready for public consumption. We are required by law to do all of our work in public, which we all take very seriously. But it is not something that we are ready to share with the public, which is why it is a draft. So I did not feel comfortable sharing any type of documents or materials with any reporter, in particular our hometown reporter, before having shared it with the committee. So I wanted to take this opportunity to share it with you all, which we have done in the packet, and just have a discussion about ways in which you all might want to see edits or changes. Again, with the caveat that there are already a lot of edits and changes that we are planning on making. Specifically, I want to just highlight a couple. One is we will be updating a lot of the data. So right now it focuses on stories from the class of 2024. We'll be updating those to the class of 2025. Any academic data that we have that is more current than what we're using, we'll be updating that. We also we talked a lot about adding more places for student voice, and that would mean removing some of the other content because it's already quite long. We want to include honest reflection about our challenges. And then I would like to also add a section on district priorities and goals after that conversation takes place later this August. So I'm happy to share it with you. I have nothing to hide, but I really hoped to share something at a time when we had something more final to reflect on. But with that, all of that context, I'd love to just have kind of an open dialogue about what you all saw in the draft that you liked, you didn't like, you would like to see differently, any questions you have. Like, really, this is just an open discussion about how we can use this printed document to connect with the community and share all of the great things that are happening and all of the work that we're continuing to do.
Great.
So that's my long spiel.
Yeah, thanks, Carrie. Sandy.
Carrie, I know you did most of this work before this committee was seated, so this is
yes,
awesome work. Awesome work. I'm trying to pull up that document so I can talk some sense. So One thing I really loved was on, I think, page 2, where you have a QR code where folks can go see the sample of a newsletter and such, right? I'm wondering if there are options to maybe have such QR codes on other pages where, it may be, say, again, I'm just going to take an example on say page 4. If there is more details on the website or something, this might be a snippet. You might be able to go find additional information online. So although having a QR code on every page might get confusing, so may have to be judicious about where all we put it, but yeah, just something for consideration.
Okay, I think that's great feedback. QR codes are great. Thank you.
Great. Michael.
Great work, Carrie.
To be clear, it was the whole committee, not just me.
Well, speaking to you were the chair.
I'm the presenter.
Yeah, but I thought you also ran the community the committee rather, because I sat down on several of them, just or at least heard the format behind it. I guess as a mode for communicating with our community, it certainly is a print mode and is certainly valuable. I look on it as, if I were an individual looking at private schools or schools around, this would be a glossy brochure telling me about the school that I want to enroll my child in. And I think that it has value in that. Help me on the idea behind this is a mechanism to communicate better with our community and to show them the riches that we have within. Besides the brochure, are there other things that we are looking at? Are there other mechanisms we're looking at to better communicate with our community about the riches that we have in our district and our system?
Do you want me to take that?
It's up to you.
I'll take a crack and then by all means, Tracy,
Yep,
or
I'll
anyone
jump in.
jump
Yep.
in. I would say that this is a year dated. This conversation was a year ago, so I'm paraphrasing from what I recall, but just take that with a grain of salt. I think the idea was to identify ways in which we could, enhance communications with the broader community. This was one idea. With the understanding that we also didn't really have a budget for this at the time. And so this was one idea that we wanted to try and see how it was received. If it went over well, like we could build upon it, but we didn't want to or bite off more than we could chew at that time. So I think this is, we're entering next month, our next goal setting session. And I would love, personally, I would love a broader communication strategy, both at the district and at the committee level. But I think that's up for the committee to decide. What the previous committee did decide was that this was the first step that we felt comfortable taking.
Yeah, and I would say Andrew and I have had some discussion about this over the summer. The summer is kind of our point to really be forward looking into the goals of next year. And we'll be bringing some goals to our August 20th meeting. I think communication is always something that we can enhance and do better. I think there are opportunities with Minuteman Media. There are opportunities with podcasts. There are opportunities with, Lori's communication. We've been talking about communication, I think, for the 5 years I've been on the committee. We were trying to get people to join the subscriber list. So anyone that's still on the meeting is really interested in this, join the subscriber list. It's not that exciting of, you're going to get all the school committee information, but we're trying to give information in different ways. I know that as a parent, I get a lot of my information from social media. I might just, look at, the superintendent's social media, the CCHS social media. I know every school has some. And some parents get their information that way. So I think it's always a work in progress. I think we can always communicate better. We can get our messaging out better. This is just one avenue. And I think this is a very prescriptive avenue that we had. Because we were being asked questions about, what are you really ranked? Things like that. And it is important for everyone to know the programming that we have. I know that we had communication in the working group. A lot of people don't know that we have a radio station that's housed at our high school and what an opportunity that is. I mean, we could get on the radio show. I watched our co-principals be on the radio show in the pandemic, and it was like you would wait for it to come on because there was nothing to do. And it was like, okay, let's tune into IQH and let's see what's happening. So I do think that there are definitely opportunities that we have to communicate better, and you can definitely be sure you'll see that in the goal setting. Okay. Anyone else?
All right, so I'm going to speak. You'll have to excuse my ignorance here. So, in reading the draft, there are a couple of typos and grammar issues. Do I need to present them all here, or just
No.
send you a draft? Okay.
This
All right,
this first draft
send you
was
updates.
literally like to lay it out and see how like where do we have too many words? Do we need more pictures? Do we need more
Yeah,
student?
that's
This is literally a layout draft. Yeah. But thank you. I mean, you're welcome to point them out so we don't miss them, but
Yep.
but never
but
fear.
no need to present it here, right?
Well, and I think
Okay.
well, we kind of struggled with that too within the working group. So if you find
Yeah.
something like that, I always think another set of eyes is always great.
Totally.
Which is why it
Yeah.
wasn't totally ready for prime time. Email Carrie because she's the chair
Will
of
do.
that committee, and then we won't have any type of deliberation or anything. So,
Excellent. Thank you.
yep. Okay. Anyone?
I think
any further
Michael has his hand up.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know if that was up again or still up.
Up again. So back to the point of communication, I guess, and you brought up the two bullets that I was going to add, that consideration both toward the radio station, the podcast from the Media studio. The sense that I got during the campaign, and the sense that I certainly think we feel when we're sitting in meeting during public comment session, is that over and above a mechanism for our community to hear from us, they want some sense of conversation. And conversation certainly would have constraints on it by the voice of a chair, and not to tread ground that hasn't been discussed, but being in the open and hearing from our community is another mechanism for us to bring it back. And whether there's one person or 15, hearing that one person, being available, hearing that one person, and within limits, so that's not more of a burden on us than necessary. It's another mechanism, at least for our citizens to feel that they're speaking to us, and we can at least bring that back to our committee as a whole to be considered. Something to think about, something to put in our minds for consideration when we move forward. That's it.
Definitely. I think that's important to have, you think about tonight, I know we did a quick switch from, before to story of the schools, but obviously we're going to consider that. I know that Lori and I have had some discussion about listening sessions moving forward. So I think that, there's definitely going to be more to come on that, and definitely more for discussion. So I appreciate that. All right, I don't think we have any action items for the story of the schools, but it was just more informative. Let me just pull up my agenda. Okay, so next up is the consent agenda. So does anyone want to take anything off of the consent agenda?
So can we remove the minutes from the June 20th meeting?
Okay.
I believe from the consent agenda.
Yep, okay, so we're gonna remove the June 20th meeting. Anything else? Okay, so I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Tracy, can we just clarify? Is it June 10th?
Oh, sorry.
Was it June 10th?
June
Okay.
10th. Sorry. Yes.
June 10th. Okay. So I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move to approve the.
Actually, I have a question. There's two things I want to note. In the June 10th, there is an error that just needs to be corrected. The June 10th Joint School Committee minutes, there's an error in terms of a name. Andrew Nowicki's name is misspelled, just to correct that. And I have a question on warrants 1134, 1144, 1145. I just noticed that there were legal expenses that to MLM that came up. Is just an explanation on that?
Probably procedurally, you should remove it from the consent
We're gonna
agenda.
remove it.
And we'll do a separate discussion and vote. I think that
Okay.
makes sense, Tracy.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
So Andrew, seeing as Andrew was making the motion, Andrew, can you make the motion and remove
Yep.
the minutes from June 10th, the joint school committee meeting, and the warrants?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented with the exception of the minutes from the June 10th and the 2 warrants in discussion.
Three
Second.
warrants.
Do you need to specify the joint school committee minutes? Because there is a June 10th exec session minutes too.
Oh, excuse me. I move to approve the joint school committee minutes with the exception of the June 10th joint committee minutes and the 2 warrants.
Three
in
warrants.
discussion.
Three warrants.
Three warrants.
Three
Three
warrants.
warrants in discussion.
Okay, it's messy, but I think we got it done. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, roll call.
Check aye.
Kelleher, aye.
Morano, aye.
Bishardi, aye.
Rankin, aye.
Williams, aye.
Okay. And then next up, we have Sandeep, the minutes. Could you talk about your corrections first, and then we'll try and them.
Yes, so on the several of the votes, my I vote was not recorded. It just has the name, so like the minutes to be corrected reflect the votes as well. And it's in at least 4 places.
It's in 4 places, so adding the word I.
After my name.
Okay. So we can either approve those tonight with those additions, or we can just put them on the next agenda. And I guess, why don't we put them on the next agenda? I'm just going to make that decision. Let's put it on the next agenda.
Yep.
We'll do the cleanup. You'll receive another draft, and then we'll approve them on August 20th.
I think
Okay.
going forward, if you see edits like that before the meeting, just email them to me and we'll clean it up and resend it to you all and try to be a little more efficient about it. We try to catch everything, but it's hard. So we count on your eyes to find the rest. So, okay, thanks.
Okay, that's first. And then I guess I'll say, in terms of warrants, if you have any questions moving forward on the warrant, just you can send them in and we can get those answered. And then that way we can approve the warrants during the meeting. Just moving forward, we haven't had a lot of school committee training, so to speak, on things like that and processes. So we're looking forward to doing that in August. But perhaps, I don't know if it's a more broad question you can answer, Lori, and then we can look to approve it just so that payments are made.
Yeah. I'm not sure what I heard the question was referring to legal. I don't know if I can answer it off the top of my head or not. So it might be, maybe Michael, send us an email and we'll get that answer to you, and we can even share with the rest of the committee and then put it on the August agenda. I think
Michael,
that
or
would be great.
will be more.
Would you be comfortable voting on it with an explanation after, or should we hold it?
Um,
I'm just, if there's like payroll or
Or ask another way, Lori, can this wait until August 20th?
Yeah, that's sort of what I meant. Sorry. Good.
Okay.
Yeah, because the designee already approved to keep payment going. You're doing the second round because you have that designated person. So, but we do want to answer your questions, Michael. So
I guess I would I'd wait to just hear the explanation. I don't want to unnecessarily hold things up. I just need the explanation.
yeah, so send us that and we'll put it on the August 20th agenda.
Yeah, so
Excellent.
why don't you, send through your questions and then we'll go from there.
Excellent.
And
Okay.
we'll send it to the whole committee so everybody has the answer.
Yeah, totally.
Excellent.
The question and the answer, I should say. Okay.
Okay.
And I think that's all. Let me just double check the agenda. Okay, and that's it. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, roll call.
Hurcheck, aye.
You got it.
Aye.
Morano, aye.
Bishardi, aye.
Rankin, I.
Williams, aye.
All right, with that, thank you, everyone. And our next meeting is on August 20th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Thank
night.
you all. Have a good
Take
night.
care.